So today I'd like to share two techniques for self-defense and protection from malefic, malevolent, evil beings, spirits, entities, whatever you like to call them. People can commonly experience these beings when they drink ayahuasca or when they take high dose mushrooms or when they take any psychedelic, for example. And you can even meet these beings in your daily life. It's simply that when you take psychedelics, the psychedelics are opening you up more to the spirit world, the etheric world, and so you're able to see these beings and possibly the effect that they're having upon you. So the effect they're having upon you may well be to literally bring you into something like a bad trip when you're having all kinds of negative thoughts and emotions that may not even be your own. They may be those that this entity is almost injecting into you and then feeding off your negative emotional reaction to those thoughts and emotions that you might believe are your own. And then there may be a cascade of shame and guilt for even having such thoughts and emotions. So these entities, we could see them as predators of the human energy body. They appear to feed on negative emotion and be able to inspire negative reactions in us that they feed off of. So yes, it may well be that you will see the being come towards you in your experience, and you can use these techniques to defend yourself from the beings. And the first technique I want to share is called Soplar, and it is a technique that the shamans in the Amazon use, and it's a kind of a blowing. It's a blowing that is a bit different to the huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down blowing, which I'll give an example of, which is so that's not a very effective blowing. If you try blowing like that, you're not going to blow anyone's house down. So this blowing is a very much a weaponized, short, sharp blow like this. So it's very effective actually in repelling these beings. They don't seem to like it. I don't know why, but it can even maim or kill them. So this technique can work very well, but there are times when that technique may not work. And there is another technique that I first came across many years ago when a friend put on a tape of some walk-ins from Sedona talk about boogie busting. And the boogies they described as fifth dimensional entities. I'm not 100% sure what the difference between a fifth dimensional and a fourth dimensional entity is. I don't call them that. I call them etheric entities. They appear to me to live in the etheric world. And this technique that they described, using a short, sharp, high-pitched sound to kill the entity. So I started to use this technique and eventually gave it a name, Torping. And brace yourself, I'm going to make the sound. All right. So yeah, it's a short, sharp, high-pitched sound directed at the being which you are wanting to essentially kill. And it might take some minutes, might take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even 20 minutes to kill some of these beings. And sometimes you can see their death in quite gory detail as well. So there are a few issues with this technique. Killing another being is quite a radical step to take, and sometimes the torping can be used to warn them, to, you know, give them a few cannonballs into the belly to get them to move away. And that might work, but it might not. And sometimes they don't understand. So it might be necessary, if you're having a lot of difficulty, to kill the being. And when it comes to fighting, it is often the case that in any form of fighting can create more fighting. So these beings can have friends who are a little bit higher up in the hierarchy. They tend to operate in hierarchies for whatever reason. So you may just be defending yourself from one being initially and then find yourself in a battle with a whole group of beings, ending up meeting the big boss, who might be very big, as big as a house. And I found it might take a bit of time and energy to take such a being down, but for myself personally, I find the technique always works. However, I would be very aware again that to use this technique may well be to engage in a fight. It's not just a matter of using the technique, okay, they're gone, I'm going to defend myself. No, they have friends, their friends will come back, and you might have to clear a whole hierarchy of beings. And even then, that might attract attention. You might attract some attention, unwanted attention, from acts such as this. So it can, although this can be very powerful and potent, and surely many of these beings are not doing the human species a great deal of favors, it's worth keeping in mind that one may not want to be engaged in a continual battle warfare against these beings. So maybe love might be a more appropriate defense than war, and it is a technique that many people use, that is to unconditionally love these beings, and that can essentially dispel them or repel them, and that technique can work very well. However, I find it very hard personally to love some of these critters, these insects, and the very gnarly beings who are out there. So yeah, I would really recommend people use their discretion and discernment, and most of all realize the rabbit hole is very deep indeed. So be safe out there, guys, and I hope you found these techniques useful, and that you can use them to defend yourself out there in the big, bad, wide multiverses.